Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Monday morning, progressives, and welcome to the December 2nd, 2024 edition of Choose Views. Yeah, it's December 2nd, guys. It is December, and it's cold out here in Chicago. 773-763-9278. Catch us on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, Twitter Stream, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and email me at richard@WCPT820.com, and I will respond. Might take me a day or two to get everything and lined up, and because you guys send a lot of emails, which is great. And, the clips and the different things that you guys are asking me to send out, I'm going to keep doing my best and getting them to you. But also make sure that you are catching our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. There you can get Choose Views, Joan Esposito, Live, Local, and Progressive, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Check out Heartland Signal, our Heartland Signal digital platform at heartlandsignal.com because, of course, there is lots of stuff hanging out to be forwarded on, to be shared, to be read and understood, and empowering you, definitely. That's the thing you want to do over at heartlandsignal.com. We have great contributors and opinion pieces and all the rest you can pass on. But most definitely, grab our podcast, and you can grab the Choose Views podcast in their entirety or special interviews that we do. Either way, check things out over there. And by all means, stay tuned for our WCPT progressive lineup, which includes the Stephanie Miller Show, my radio sister out on the West Coast, Tom Hartman, the professor of everything progressive, Joan Esposito, Live, Local, and Progressive. And definitely, as always, Patty Vasquez, my bookend, driving you home. That's right, guys. All right. So listen, here we are. It's Monday, December 2nd, 2024. And I'm back. We had the holiday in front of us, meaning Thursday, Thanksgiving, and Friday, the day after. And I hope everybody had a good time, safe time, fun time, and ate as much as they could possibly stand to eat. And as Devin was saying to me, just plowed through the leftovers, which is what we all do with celebrating, celebrating Thanksgiving and getting together with family and friends and all the rest. So I'm hoping everybody had a good time and you were safe and you were able to travel without too much drama. And I know I talked about this before in terms of whenever you're traveling, making sure you are ready. So don't get out of the house on a road trip and not have your car ready. And if you're flying, and you know what I said last week, just be prepared. So I'm glad everybody was able, and at least I hope, fingers crossed, that everybody was able to get out and travel if they did and then get home safely. We've got a lot to cover today. We've got a guest on the show calling in. Matt McNeil will be with us this morning in the 7 o'clock hour. So looking forward to chatting with him about what are we going to talk about. We're probably going to talk about some of these political appointments from Trump, or at least not appointments, but I'm calling them suggestions, Devin, because they still got to go through, they still got to go through a little bit of the fire, if you will. So I'm calling them suggestions because they're terrible selections, if you will. But Matt and I will probably chat about that a little bit later in the show this morning. But we've got a good week in front of us, a full week, no days off. So there you go. And a number of items that we're going to be chatting about. So we look forward to hearing your calls or hearing from you with your calls. And as you know, you can also text us at the same call-in number, 773-763-9278. So had a family get-together and over the weekend. And a shout-out to the Augies, to the golf, fitness, feta, and fashion crews. The Big B family, you all know who you are, and all the new additions to the Big B family. The family meeting family, the writers, the historians, and local officials, and even the out-of-towners that made it. So hopefully everybody had a good time and all the rest. So there you go. So I think as we talk about one of the what would we call it, big items right now that's on the table. I mean, it's nominations or suggestions to this new administration that we're going to have to deal with. It's, it's definitely some people who are way below qualified for the suggestions that have been put out by Trump. And there are some people who are definitely ones that don't have a positive outlook for the country. And there's an article, there's a piece that I was going through, wanted to talk about today in that context about, is it about pursuing justice or is it about getting even? Is it about running the country or is it about running the country into the ground? I saw this piece that many of you probably saw that Fareed Zakaria put out over the weekend about, what happened. And he missed the mark. He's blaming it on the Democratic Party not reaching out to the young bros, if you will, and that the Democratic Party did not use the economic conversation as a way to win the election. And normally or oftentimes Fareed gets things right, but he missed the mark this time. So you need to find it. You need to listen to it yourself. It's I didn't want to play it this morning. It's 6 minutes long, and it's a little more of an opinion than it is necessarily fact. But Fareed Zakaria missed the mark on this one. He did not even once in this piece talk about the impact of gender, i.e. sexism, race, misogyny, Christian nationalism at all. Not once did he mention that those were factors, huge factors in this election. He just basically said, the summation of it is that the Democratic Party keeps moving too far to the left, and they've forgotten the bros and economic empowerment for young guys in an effort to hit the middle class. They missed out on the bros, and in an effort to reach the LGBTQ community, they missed out on the bros. And I'm giving you the edited version of this. The point I'm making is Fareed Zakaria is not a politician. He's never run for any office, never held any office that I know of. And he was providing an opinion piece. So he's entitled to that, that's his thing. But what he's not entitled to is to, unless he's going to jump in the middle of the ring, to tell the Democrats that their messaging was all wrong because it didn't target the bros. It didn't target the young guys that, are the future. So he didn't. And what cracked me up about it is he literally forgot about younger women. If that conversation was accurate about the Democratic message, missed the young, fill in the blank, he didn't talk about it in terms of the young female voter. He talked about it in terms of the young male voter. So that's the part that right out of the gate, Devin, I was like, well, okay, let's say that the young was missed, but why would this guy who is respected forget about young women voters in his piece? And I thought that right there tells me that he's missing the bigger message that the Democratic Party during this election was trying to make, and that's to include everybody. And, I just felt like, come on, Fareed, I thought you were better than this. I mean, I've listened to him and followed some of the things that he's done, and he just, I just got a post. He also said Barack Obama received 14% of non-college educated white people, and Kamala Harris lost 14%. Well, the reality is, it's not that she lost those people. Those people just decided that they either were not going to show up. To say that she lost it in direct proportion to what Barack Obama gained, is not looking at other pieces inside of that, which are how many of those non-college educated white people were not willing to vote for a woman, irrespective of, the bro factor. And, the reality is a lot of people just can't get there. A lot of people just can't get to this conversation, and it's something that I am going to keep talking about. The numbers. I know that a lot of people want to dig in and dig in and dig in and say, well, but they missed this part of the group here. You can't have this conversation and realistically and honestly have this conversation without acknowledging the fact that if you don't look at the key groups that did not move from voting for Trump, which are white females and white males that are, that stayed, then you can't really have this conversation and not lay over into that conversation the fact that they said, this is so important that people grasp this. As we're starting to see more and more, people are realizing that the economic sort of lies that were told and the propping up and protection by the mainstream media, that if people are not willing to say, wait a minute, and some people are starting to have this quote unquote buyer's remorse, or we're hearing stories of this conversation. But I have to come back to this so that I make my point as clearly as I can. That percentage that still voted for Trump that are white female and white male, and yes, the conversation is still going to be, hey, wait a minute, what about the economy? That's coming out as not having been ultimately what they were voting for or not voting for. All those pieces are there. But I'll say this before we go to break. This is the key element that you can't get away from. You can say all day long that Vice President Harris should have been running 6 months sooner. Biden should have stepped down. All of these things. You could laundry list all the things that the Democratic Party could have done. But ultimately, 75 million people said, I'm going to vote rather than for this woman who has a fairly unscathed background, a good record, has been elected to the three branches of government like no other candidate that's run for either party has, and has been part of an administration that helped turn this country back in a better direction during COVID and as we started to move successfully away from the horrors of COVID. 75 million Americans said, I would rather not vote for her and lie to themselves and say, because I don't really know who she is. But in direct contrast to that, say, I'm willing to vote for the guy that a jury of his peers found him guilty on 34 counts, and that another jurisdiction determined that he had sexually assaulted a woman, i.e. adjudicated rapist, and he was on trial, about to go on trial in three other jurisdictions for election tampering down in Georgia, stealing documents from our country, and trying to overthrow an election. You can talk to me all day long about what the Dems could have done differently, and Vice President Harris should have done this, and on and on and on and on. But at the end of the day, people have to take responsibility for the fact that they chose to vote for a guy who has all of this baggage and garbage. And let's be honest, his economy, his so-called business acumen has been a failure. You can tell me, let me back up. You can tell me all day long that people should have done taken different approaches in the Democratic messaging. But ultimately, guys, you can't have that conversation and the same time say, or not say, as it were, that the 75 million people chose to vote for that garbage. You have to start the conversation there. And all this, clutching of pearls and gnashing of teeth that the Democratic Party should have done X, Y, Z is by comparison nothing to the other part of the conversation. And that's that people said, I'm okay with that dude being the president of the United States. Until people wrestle with that, and I can even take it out of the conversation of the number of what the percentages are inside of different communities of culture, of gender, of race and class. If I took that and separated it and then said 75 million people chose that's the real conversation. Until someone can have that, you really are fooling yourselves. You just are. And that's the wake-up call. It's not the Democratic Party needs to have a wake-up call. The country has to have a wake-up call, because people outside of the country are not saying, let's break down the Democratic Party. They're saying, how in the hell could America vote for that? So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some visits that different politicians were making. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Good morning. You're waking up with Richard Chu.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We're live and ready to hear from you. Text or call us now at 773-763-9278. Same number. Simple as that. Let's get the conversation going on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Shout outs to everybody that's listening. I've got folks out on the West Coast, the Northwest Coast, and other places that are getting up early to listen to our show, and I appreciate you plugging in this morning. What I was saying about Fareed Zakaria, this is how I'll just read what my response was to this. Sorry, FC, Fareed Zakaria, sorry, pal. You left out the number of women, white women, voting for Trump's BS, and other voting blocs that voted for Trump's BS that are now having regrets. You forgot about sexism, racism, misogyny, and mainstream media like you covering for him by not, quote, covering him. Such BS, Fareed. And so it's almost like somebody in the C-suite wrote his piece and completely skipped over the fact that misogyny, racism, sexism, and Christian nationalism played a huge part in this. So that's going to be part of our conversation as we go forward, because one of the things that I'm going to do is to hold people accountable for them not wanting to have that conversation or that part of the conversation. The mainstream media's impact, and most certainly the impact of those four legs of the stool that I talk about. And without that, it's hard for people to really engage in a conversation and be honest if they can't talk about those items too. And rather this sort of let's jump on the Democrats and all that. But all right, you guys get my point. It's one that'll be part of our conversation for the weeks and months and years to come, because it's a reality. So that's just something that everybody has to be willing to if they're being honest. If they're being honest. So let's grab a quick call. Let's go to Karen here in Chicago. Good morning, Ms. Byrne. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I just wanted to check on your wall. No, just kidding.
All is good. It didn't.
Oh, I'm fine. I do all my own stunts.
That's right.
Okay. So, all right. So anyway. Fareed Zakaria, it's the same lazy take by the media about talking about white males in particular and their economic insecurity. Okay. What I want any one of them, what do they mean when they say that the Democratic Party is moving too far over to the left? Because the main message of her campaign was freedom.
Yeah.
So all of these people who say that they care about American values and they're patriots and all the rest of it miss the big message of freedom.
Yep.
Freedom to love who you want to love, be who you want to be, freedom to welcome in with open arms and open heart the stranger, treat people with fairness and dignity and love. And this is the same crowd that over on the other side talks about patriotism and but they voted for the guy who incited the violent attack on our country, on our capital. They talk about, these young bros, hear him say the things that he says about women, and they vote for him anyway. Why? That what the big question is. Why are you voting for this person who is an adjudicated racist?
And
the same people that say
check this out,
that they care about law and order too, and yet police officers were bludgeoned.
This is
okay, and this man is a felon, convicted felon.
Yeah, I mean they made it. Listen, in this conversation, excuse me, guys, in this conversation about the quote unquote bros and the economy and economic points. Freedom and inclusion, even when it came to the economy, and have the freedom to work and do the things that you love, and have the freedom to do and to be included in the economic process. There was nothing in the messaging about from the Democratic Party up and down the ticket that was about excluding anybody from the freedom to and the inclusiveness of working in a job, working in a career that you were going to feel great and proud about. That was the message. And in terms of even talking about the quote economic piece for the bros, that was so Fareed just when I was listening to this piece, I was like, God, was this written by 4 people in the C-suite, and then they sent it down to him? Internal
Slapped his name on it,
and said, "Okay, this is what we need you to to read on Sunday." Because I was like, "Good Lord, dude, where were you? You were not even close." But then I go back to what you so often talk about when it comes to mainstream media. The mainstream media, once again, they covered for Trump by not covering him in a way. And I'm tired of hearing people say that the mainstream media doesn't know how to cover him. What do you have to do? The information's right there. It's not about how to cover him. And then there weren't enough journalists, if you will, or people in front of a camera that were willing to say, "Oh, no. That's a load of BS." They haven't done that for 9 years.
No, and in addition to that, speak enough about what actually the progressive policies that were enacted and able to get through because of President Biden, so that we had a miracle recovery after a pandemic that Donald Trump not just fumbled the ball. I mean, he didn't. He ran away from the ball. Okay. Right. And left it for everybody else to pick up. And, then, when you talk about the cost of the media talks about the cost, but people aren't feeling it. Yes, all of these numbers are here, but people just aren't feeling it. Well, did they hear the part about the tariffs and what the tariffs would do? Did they hear the part about deportations and what that will do? Did they hear that? Did they hear that part of the reason that we had such an amazing recovery was because of immigration?
Yeah.
This is to get back to your original point. It's a lazy take. What the key ingredients are: misogyny, and in many cases with these white women, racism. And I'm just going to say these 53% that voted to overturn the bans in their states on abortion, even though he was talking about doing a national ban, even though there was all this stuff. See, they want to be lied to. They want to be able to hate who they want to hate. Okay, I mean, so this idea, I wish somebody would say, what do you mean when you say that they move too far to the left?
Yeah. I mean, because
by saying that my child has a right to exist. What?
Yeah.
What? The majority of Americans don't even know that they've ever met a trans person. If they have, they don't even know it.
Right. No,
or they've never come across a trans person. So don't tell me that that's what it is. It's about freedom. You do you, boo. You can be who you want to be. You can have an abortion or not have an abortion if you don't want to have an abortion. It's about freedom. And the media, I can't with them. They have so thoroughly screwed this country.
One of the things that should start happening, and we are at the tip of the spear of this, is that when someone in the media, and I'm not patting myself on the back, I'm just saying we have to consistently, across the board, in terms of progressive messaging. People are asking, well, how can we change our message? What can we? No, I think what we should probably do is this. When someone in the mainstream media says something that's lazy, like Fareed Zakaria did, we have to yell loudly about that's a bunch of BS. And I think that we can start right there. Whenever someone in the mainstream media covers something in a way, and we're going to see a lot of this finger pointing. We've already seen it in the 3 weeks since the election. I think it's incumbent on us to say, no, that's a bunch of BS, what you're throwing out, because you guys didn't do your job. You guys didn't cover this story. How come we don't know more about the fact that Donald Trump lied when he said he didn't know about, we can go all the way back to COVID, and we have a recording of him talking to Bob Woodward and admitting that this thing was dangerous as hell. And it was pretty bad. Why isn't, now one could say, well, the Dems could have cut that up into a spot and played that over and over again. Yes, and the media, one of your people, a journalist, has him on tape saying how bad COVID is early on in the first 60 days. And that should have said to people across the board, he's not qualified to be president because we have him on tape yet again lying or playing with American lives. And so the media has a responsibility to make that a face forward constantly in the minds of people, as much as talking about something that they want to say about Vice President Harris and if she's black or not. You know what I mean? I don't give it.
Right, absolutely. Because
that was far less important to me about her percentile of ethnicity versus the dude that used to hold the office lying to the American people about something that cost people's lives. But the mainstream media doesn't have the guts because, let's be honest, it's run by all the top 3-4 news outlets are run, or 5 are run by conservative white men. And two that are immigrants to the country that they now run media outlets in. That's a damn shame.
Oh yeah, and then you have one of them that's sitting next to Trump at Thanksgiving,
right?
Sitting right next to him.
Absolutely.
You know, not with his family, right next to Trump. So because to your point, Kamala Harris, each campaign had their messaging, right? And they had their campaign ads. Okay. But without the media backing up, because people could just look at that and say, well, they're selling themselves. They're selling their, whatever. But, but the media not doing their due diligence and not backing that messaging up.
Just like they did,
when Kamala Harris was not lying. In anything she said, she was not lying.
Right.
In the messaging.
Karen,
and the media did not back her up. Anyway.
I got you nice and awoke this morning and ready to go, but guess what I got to do? I've got to go to a break.
You got to slam me. You got to slam me into a hard break.
Into a wall in my house. All right. Good to hear your voice this morning.
All right. You too. Have a great day.
You too.
All right.
All right,
Bye-bye.
guys. We're going to take a little bit of a late break. 773-763-9278. We will be right back.
It's Chew's View with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to Chew's Views, the first week following Thanksgiving, heading into December, and now that we're, as we do every year officially in the Christmas season. But, there were stores that had stuff in October, Christmas decorations out, and we saw some of the ads and all that. But here we are, December 2nd, Monday, December 2nd, 2024. What Karen said and then some. Mainstream media loves to cover the negative of what the Democratic Party and Dems, up and down, local, regional, national, cover it in a way that says Dems are awful, but not always necessarily saying Republicans are great, but leaning into Dems are awful. Here's what's wrong with the Dems. Here's what's wrong with the Dems. Here's what's wrong with the Dems. Before the election, during the election, since the election, that's consistently what they've done. And all you got to do is pull up your own information. They consistently have done that. They have not broken from that fever to find reasons to trash talk the Democratic Party. And listen, I'm the first cat that's going to say, and you guys know this about me by now, I'm quick to say, what can I do to be better, to make it better? Where did I mess up? So I'm all about the evaluation and like, oh, okay. But, the mainstream media leans into this like there's nothing that the Republican Party has done to negatively impact this country. And let's be honest, let's go back to the impeachment trials. The Senate was run by the Republicans at the time, and they chose to not prosecute this dude. They chose to not prosecute Donald Trump. The Senate did. The Republicans in the Senate made the decision that they weren't going to get on board to do the right thing, but they call themselves in the same breath patriots. We're Americans. However, they didn't do the thing that would have been the most American thing to do in that context. Okay? And that's frustrating because people want to say that they want to call themselves patriots. I've got friends and family that served in the military. And they understand what patriotism is all about. I have friends and family that served on different police forces, and they understand what it's about to be a patriot in the jurisdiction that they're assigned to as a law enforcement officer. And it's not about this just running around waving the flag. That's not what it's about. The patriots, the folks that failed us in Washington were Republicans when it came to those in the Senate that didn't get on board with prosecuting Donald Trump during those 2 impeachments from the House. They were real, and they didn't do their job. They failed their patriotic duty. And we can't forget that. Democrats have been the ones that have stood in the void to keep things from going off the rails. And so, as I said before, Matt McNeil and I are going to probably dive into this conversation around, suggestions, as I'm calling them, with appointments, suggestions with the upcoming cabinet. But I can't not talk about something that we all have heard about in the last, 12 to 18 hours. And that's President Biden pardoning his son, Hunter Biden. And all I'm going to say is good job. Absolutely good job. And I know some of you may want to talk about that. Maybe not. But I will say it without any apologies. Good job, President Biden. Jill Wine-Banks, who's been on WCPT many times as a guest on Jones' show, gave a very quick, here's the reason why it made sense. And I'll follow Jill's legal acumen in this space. She said basically the trial wouldn't have come to any sort of fruition were it not for the name of the defendant. In this case, Hunter Biden's last name. We know that. People can so I could care less what Republicans have said in this last 12 to 18 hours since this was announced. I'm more disappointed, and disappointed is not the right word. I posted a few things to some of the Democratic quote unquote leading voices that said that this was a bad move by President Biden and they're clutching their pearls. It was a bad move for him to pardon his son. Are you kidding me? I have this acronym that I came up with. It's RUFCOM, and I'm not. Devin already knows what it is. I'm not going to repeat it. But are you blanking kidding me? Democrats should have fallen right. See, this is where I go when I get really frustrated with how Democrats just start shooting themselves in the foot. Okay, rather than getting behind President Biden and saying, "Yep, that's the way you should handle this," because your son, based on the situation that he was thrown into and maybe didn't navigate particularly well, got a little railroaded by the justice system. And I know there's people out there, folks that are African American, that say, and I have too, the justice system ain't just. I get that. And there's many cases out there where there's many folks out there that should probably be pardoned because of not only the evidence, but because of the makeup of the case. I get that. I'm not blind to that as a black man in America. But what I will also say is that in this case with Hunter Biden, a large part of this was political. And anybody that wants to sit back and go, no, Rich, he didn't fill out that form correctly. And because of that, okay, fine. Did he steal any documents from the country? Did he call up an election official, a state official, and say, hey, man, I need 11,000 plus votes? Did he not sell secrets, but definitely was kind of out there when it came to certain information being shared with another country, i.e. Paul Manafort. I mean, the list goes on of things that Trump pardoned people for that were things that hurt the country. All Hunter Biden did was hurt himself because of an addiction that, God help any of us, would tear any of us apart. We're all 1, 2, maybe 3 degrees of separation from somebody that we know that has somebody that they know that has an addiction, or has an addiction, or had to go through having had an addiction. Let me say that the right way. We all do. You can head fake all you want to, but there's somebody that we know and love that they're 1 degree of separation from that person, and to punish him for making a mistake on a document of this nature was crazy and politically motivated. But more importantly, it harmed himself. It didn't harm anybody else. The stuff that people, the things that Trump pardoned people for harmed Americans. And what he's about to do with some of the J6 folks is going to harm. It's said that actually harms patriotism. That harms what it supposedly means to be an American. You attacked our Capitol, and you're going to get pardoned for that. So for all the people out there, whether it be on the left or on the right or in the middle, that are upset that President Biden pardoned his son over something that I'll bet you dollars to donuts that the minute that Trump is in office and he's got these knuckleheads that he's suggesting like Kash Patel, who's got a major you-know-what for Hunter Biden, and I won't be disrespectful, but he's got a major you-know-what for Hunter Biden. You're telling me that they wouldn't turn the ire of the federal justice system on Hunter Biden to cause more pain? So I'm happy. I'm pleased. I'm overjoyed. I highly support whatever words I can use to describe that President Biden chose to pardon his son for something that many people could have made a similar mistake, and if they were struggling with an addiction, probably would have made that mistake. And so part of being a patriot in this country, in my opinion, my observation, and my experience, is compassion. Part of it is being compassionate. Certainly, if those who run around running their behinds in the church on Sunday want to talk about they're a good Christian, part of what comes with that, if you're following the text of Jesus or Allah, even Buddha, is a little bit of compassion. But you see, I think a lot of the people that have fallen in line with the Republican Party, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. I think a lot of people who over the past 25 to 40 years that have fallen in love with the Republican Party, they have some deep-seated hate of themselves. I've become more and more of a believer of something that I must have said 20 plus years ago to a friend of mine. I think a lot of the people who follow the Republican Party and follow the Republican, quote, conservative message and this hyper-religious message have some deep-seated hate. And they have some deep-seated feelings that they should make life difficult for other people. Because if you look at the through line of what the Republican Party is doing now and what they've been doing the last 20 to 25 years, there's a lot of hate in there. There's a lot of retribution in there. There's a lot of this sort of Christian, we need to cause pain for people if they aren't lining up with us. And tied into that is this sort of this conversation about Jesus and God. And if you don't follow this, then you need to be punished. And we've got a couple people in our Supreme Court that believe in that garbage. And one of them is based on based on text, not texting, but stuff that she's written and things that that before she became a Supreme Court justice believes in. And that's Amy Coney Barrett. There's some deep-seated hate with some of the people that are following the Republican Party and have been for the past 20 plus years. It isn't about patriotism. It's about hate that they have of themselves. And that's being put out there. And it's part of the core of why they have this sort of uber need to make other people feel some pain. And it's economic pain that a lot of these folks are about to feel. But they're okay with that because they think that the others should be paid, should be put in a position where they have to suffer. The same thing is happening with regard to women. They want women, if they aren't going to just have babies all the time, they should feel some pain. They want folks that are trying to get to a safer place in the world coming across our southern border, that they should feel some pain. I mean, Greg Abbott, putting people in a situation where they have to crawl over some wire to get to safety. Donald Trump and his administration putting people in babies in cages. And the list goes on. It's all about causing pain. I think deep down inside, they've got some deep-seated ugliness and hate of themselves. So, y'all check me on that if you think I need to be checked on it. But I believe I'm on to something. So, listen, guys, we've blown through another break this morning. I knew we were probably going to have that kind of morning. The calls are lining up. I got to get to you guys. So, we'll take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. So, as we left, hate of themselves is a part of the Republican brand. And it's almost like if you don't hate yourself, you can't be with us. If you don't, as a Republican, if you don't have some hate for others, I should say, you can't be with us. And that origin is hating themselves. And you can see it in how so many people just have this crazy vitriol, just awful vitriol. But as I've said so many times, will show up in church on Sunday. I want to say this one other thing about Hunter Biden. There's many other things I want to say, but we got to come into the top of the hour. I'm glad the president did it. And all the snowflakes out there that are on the left, not the right, I don't care what the folks on the right have to say about it. They can kick rocks. The ones on the left, the so-called progressive liberal Democrats that are whining about it. I mean, Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado, boy, did he step in it, saying that this was, listen, man, he's taking care of his son on some charges. I almost said trumped-up charges. On some charges that aren't bogus charges, but they are legitimate mistakes. And it was just sent to me as a reminder in terms of making a mistake on a federal form. There's ways around that other than prosecuting and punishing someone for it. If you want to, I mean, President Biden stepped out of the limelight when it came to this case with his son. Intentionally said, I'm not going to get involved, I'm not going to weigh in, because he knew it was the right thing to do. And President Biden has consistently done what I think is the right thing given the moment. And in this case, with pardoning his son, I'm down with him doing it. I just am. And so if you are a person that doesn't want to cause pain to other folks, then this is one of those moments. And I think that he made it clear that he's allowed to do it. And listen, he would have been criticized one way or the other. There are people that would have said, well, he should have pardoned his son. Why didn't he pardon his son? Once again, Biden being weak. No. So he's going to catch hell either way. So do the thing that's going to benefit the most people. And that's to benefit Hunter, his family, and the rest of the Biden family. So that's where I stand on that. And I'm not moving because if I were in that situation, I would have done the same thing. And many folks know this is the part where Jared Polis, Governor Polis, is wrong. Many people know that in their heart of hearts, if they have the power to do that, that they would have done it for their own son. That's the part where the folks who are out there whining about, oh, I can't believe he did it. It's not the right use of justice. Stop lying to yourself. You would have done the same thing to help your child. And anybody that's really trying to say they wouldn't have, you need some therapy. When you're not breaking the law, you're doing what the Presidential Powers Act allows you to do. So some folks need to shut the hell up in that space. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but every now and again, I am going to say these things because you guys need to respectfully understand that that's what you do with that kind of power and ability to help. So, all right, guys, I've been holding on to that this morning because I knew I needed to give myself some time to talk about it, and I know some of you guys want to chat about it as well. So let's see if we can squeeze in a call before we go to break. Let's go to Maury in Highland Park. Good morning, Maury. Welcome to Choose
Richard.
Views.
How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Good. I hope you had a wonderful holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, this is an auspicious day because I agree with 99% of what you said. Okay? And let me elaborate a little on the 1%. I totally agree with you. These are ticky-tack charges, but they likely should have never gotten to this point. However, here's the difference. And I say this as a guy who's been a Democrat for over 4 decades, actively, and also a veteran. The fact is, the president, if you look at the nature of the pardon, it goes way beyond pardoning for a minor gun charge and some tax evasion. This is a 10-year pardon. And I can tell you, I've already been looking at a lot of the foreign press this morning. We are being roasted over this. But here's the biggest reason. It's not that he pardoned him on some ticky-tack stuff. It's that he repeatedly said that he wasn't going to do this exact thing, and he turned around and did it. Now, here's the real damage. I mean, this guy's a lifelong Washingtonian, and he's going to suffer in a way that his legacy is going to be dictated by over 300 million Americans in the future. However, who else is he hurting? He's damaged this party. If you just look at some of the foreign press this morning, beyond estimation. I mean, this will hurt everybody. This gave validation to this whole two-tiered justice argument. And again, I don't think these charges should have been brought in the first place. But we've lost the entire moral high ground on all the things we should be able to talk about, whether it's no man's above the law or persons above the law, whether we believe, our laws really mean something. But I just believe we handed a narrative over into unforced error, and I blame no one but Joe Biden. I mean, I don't think it should trickle down to people, but I think we will pay a price for this for the reason that he just did exactly what he said he would not do. And again, if you look at all the pundits, what they're saying now, including people on their own side, they're saying he did this. He only waited to do this. Everyone knew he was going to do it. He only waited until the election was over. So again, it just feeds the cynical argument. But I 100% believe these were totally small-time charges, and they should have never been brought.
Well, but see, and so the question I'm going to want to ask you, Maury, and I'm not going to play the disagreement game with you. I just want to ask you this question: what do you think is the harm that, or the damage? I'm sorry, is the word you use. What's the damage that it's going to do?
Well, that we stand for nothing. And again, now I'm basing this off a 4-decade estimation.
Who doesn't stand for?
I mean, I've seen that we've said no person is above the law. That our word means something. He publicly stated innumerable times, "I will not pardon my son," and then he even doubled down. He said, "Especially if he's convicted, I will not pardon my son." And that's what I'm saying.
I get that. And this is where I think a lot of the folks on the left, if you will, have said what you're just saying. And that's why I wanted to have that conversation. This is where I stand on this. We haven't lost the moral high ground. I don't think we've lost the moral high ground. I don't think we will lose the moral high ground over this. As a country, the voters lost the moral high ground by voting for Donald Trump. 75 million Americans lost the moral high ground. It's easy. It's an easy target. Look how everybody's losing their mind over this. And I know what President Biden said on numerous occasions. I get that. And to say, that we lost the moral high ground over this one thing, we've lost the moral high ground, and the damage it's going to do to the Democratic Party. Look, man, I get where you're coming from, Maury. I truly do. And I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily. I'm just saying, well, if there's one thing I will say I'm not in agreement with you on is us losing the moral high ground. I don't think that's the damage that President Biden has done. So, but I get it, Maury. I do.
Let me retort this way, just real quickly. And again, I don't take umbrage at anything you're saying. the fact is they're not our teachers. They don't provide the example to us. We stand for what we stand for. And one of those things is candor with the voters. Candor with all citizens, not just voters. And they're not the ones to provide the example. Now, we can play whataboutism all day long, and I agree with you. I think there's a lot of that, but we don't modulate a lot of what goes on. We do modulate, and we have to accept accountability for our own actions and our own words. And again, I'm basing this off of over 4 decades of involvement, of activism, of volunteerism, and ardent support for typically, left-leaning policies as a Democrat. They mean different things in different parts of the country. But I would tell you, this really troubles me, and I would offer that if anyone is to look at what's being said in the foreign press today, and I'm not saying that's our bellwether.
They can't be.
But this has become a laughing stock. I mean, literally, people are saying, who did he think he was kidding? Yeah. And it just shows the credibility. And I think everybody associated with this administration, this is like the parting shot that they're going to be remembered at. And I think it's a tragedy.
All right, Maury, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate your call. I got to go to a break. 773, guys, 763-9278. When we get back, we'll probably have a call from our good friend, Matt McNeil. If not, we'll keep it moving. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Yeah, spicy conversation about this Hunter Biden pardon. One thing I want to say about the economy that was part of we're in the news break. And MAGA's got to admit this. The economy that allowed for you to spend billions of dollars on Black Friday and over the course of the last 3.5 days, $60 on Trump's Bibles, $400 on Trump sneakers, parking lots full, restaurants full, all the rest. Guess what that was? That was President Biden's economy. It's not Trump's economy. It wasn't at all Trump's economy. It's President Biden's economy. And I'm going to lean into the credibility of that as much as I could say or go back and forth in my own brain that he should or should not have pardoned his son after what he said, that he wouldn't do it. That's, to me, that's a person saying, I'm changing my mind. I'm looking at it differently. I promise you I won't do it. You know what? I'm going to look at this differently. I'm going to do it differently. And if you can't give somebody some grace for that, I get where folks are coming from, and I appreciate what the previous caller, Maury, had to say about that. We haven't lost them. Look, y'all, the moral high ground that we supposedly have, 75 million voters said we don't have any moral high ground if we're going to have that conversation. Because the guy that's about to become the president of the United States has pardoned some hardcore folks when he left office 4 years ago. And then nobody lost a damn bit of sleep over the fact that he pardoned those people. And losing that didn't happen. And it won't happen. It won't. So let's just be honest with ourselves there. All right. We have a wonderful guest joining us this morning, my man, Matt McNeil. Good morning and welcome to Choose Views, Matt, from the Matt McNeil Show. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, sir. First of all, an absolute privilege to be with you this morning. Thank you very much. I really enjoy it. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Me too. I was like, I got to make sure. Monday, Matt's going to be out. We got to make sure we're squared away and ready to go. How was your weekend? How was your holiday weekend?
It was fantastic. Small group this year,
okay, but
got the turkey soup. I made, of course, fantastic Thanksgiving. Got the turkey soup made. Got some time with the family. Was yours good too?
Great time, and really enjoyed the fact that it was laid back, and then we had some, like you, just enjoyed it, and so I'm thrilled to death behind all that, and just happy that everybody was safe. And that's kind of what we want to try to do when we have some time away like that with family and friends, is be safe, lots of laughs, lots of good conversation, and that was the case for us. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
It's really nice of them to give us some talking points this morning to go over. After a nice kind of light news weekend, hey, guess what? Right into Monday. Here we go.
Oh, man. Listen, man. I don't know where you sit on this. I mean, there's a couple things I know we're going to chat about this morning. Obviously, the big news item for so many people is President Biden pardoning Hunter. And then at the same time, we cannot get away from the crazy crew of people that are being, as I'm calling, suggested, not appointed, not selected, not approved to be part of the administration. But good God, Kash Patel. I mean, look, y'all. Go ahead, Matt. You take the wheel.
Well, I'll start with the pardon. Now, first of all, to all the Democrats out there that might be upset, I want to stop you from doing something. There is a bad habit within our party that we're the Democrats, we're on the left side of the room, the Republicans are on the right side of the room, and the Republicans are being bullies and they're being bad guys. But you're scared. You don't want to go over there to face off Trump and face these people. So what do? You look at the guy next to you and you punch them and you feel like you did something. Stop that. You cannot be filtering things so intently through your side that you constantly look at your own side as a villain while you watch the real villains across the way and say, well, they're big and mean. I don't want to do that. So stop. Joe Biden's son was a target from the beginning. I don't have any problem with this, considering we've heard the incoming Trump administration say not only were they going to prosecute him for, the gun charges, tax charges, they were going to reopen up the fraudulent, Ukraine charges again and try to prosecute him for that. There was going to be an entire wing of the DOJ that's going to be the Hunter Biden dog and pony show investigation wing. I do not have any problem with that, and Joe Biden understood that. That's why the pardon is basically for 10 freaking years.
Because basically they're going to come after him. And it's going to be about pain and punishment. Meanwhile, Matt McNeil, the dude that is a convicted felon, i.e., Charles Kushner, is about to be an ambassador. And so people
want to love that.
I love the way you position that. I'm going to remember that when you were sitting in a room and rather than getting up and walking, listen, you and I, guys like Eric Grant from the family meeting, we would be the cats that would get up and say, let's go knock some tables over, because I'm not going to punch Matt. I'm not going to punch Eric. I'm going to go, not literally, I'm going to go punch the guy or the person over there that's trash talking our team. I'm not going to punch my own players. Let's go, man. Let's go get them. There's not enough of that. We rather turn the doggone bullets on ourselves rather than saying we're going to go get them for talking about us.
Exactly.
And I appreciate you putting it that way.
It's just this, it's about, we talk about communication, we talk about messaging. For goodness sakes, how many Democrats this last election cycle, and this is a major reason why things didn't go the way one wanted to go, how many moderate Democrats, their entire campaign was, I can't stand the Democrats. And you're like, what are you doing? What are you freaking doing? If that is your message, how do you think, A, you have any integrity, and B, you're helping any down-ticket races? All you're doing is basically sacrificing the party platform and the party nominees for your own agenda. And in the case where a handful of these moderates won, what's the arrogant stance they've taken since then? Well, you should have done it more like me. This was the most moderate Democratic campaign I've ever seen. Liz Cheney was out there. So you guys have to understand, the problem here is not that you need to start swinging haymakers at the guy next to you. You need to realize that you have to have a consistent party platform. You need to stick together, and you need to be able to get over yourself. Mm-hmm. Oh, Joe Biden is going to pardon Hunter. How dare he? I don't blame him at all. If I was in his same place, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I would do it in a heartbeat, considering the clown car brigade that's about to come in that door and how they are intentionally going to try to target him. I don't blame him at all. And so I think we have to learn how to focus our attacks and not be afraid to go out there and say, you know what? You can't have an absolute standard for your side while you watch basically the sewer creatures from, just go taking over. And I'll get to them eventually. But one of our guys didn't dot an I or cross a T. Come on, you've got to be a little bit. You have to understand that you can't be on such a high hill when you're basically facing off against what we're facing off against.
And what's interesting, Matt, is that there's so many people who were, to your point about punching the guy or the gal on your own team. So while we're standing out in the front yard having a doggone stupid fight, the back door is wide open. And this is, I don't go down the road too often of doing what you and I say, the same thing we're saying we shouldn't do, which is to over-criticize our party. But every now and again, I have to lean into this because it's where we lose ground, and that is, why are we fighting in the front yard over how tall the grass is? Meanwhile, the back garage, the back door is wide open, and they're just snatching all of our stuff. We should have our full I say this all the time. It's part of my promo. All of our players means all of our players. Front door, back door, alley, garage. Every part of your property politically needs to be lined up and protected. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to message since the election is, look, y'all, they're going to try to splinter us off. And we need to be elbows, locked arms tight, like folks marching across the bridge in Selma. That kind of force and unity, because they're trying to come after. And this is one of those examples, I think. I mean, your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely no. You're spot on. I mean, let's look back at the election cycles here. What were the two worst election cycles prior to this election year for the Democrats? 2016, 2010. What happened both of those election cycles? The Democrats self-imploded. The Democrats ran against the Affordable Care Act back in 2010 and basically undermined any kind of message. And funny, all those same Democrats who badmouthed the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare back then, the day after the election were why weren't we campaigning with the Affordable Care Act? It's actually quite popular. Exactly, because the Republicans played you and you basically beat up yourself. Yep. Go to 2016. The indecisiveness within the party cost us the election. When have we done well? When we've had a unified message where everyone's on board. And I get it. We're all dreamers. We're all idealistic on the left side of the aisle. But you can't sit there and say, I'm going to forsake everything I've got because of this one issue, when the reality is, if you lose, regardless of what that issue is,
you don't get
the reality on the other side is far worse than anything the Democrats could come up with. And I understand sometimes the decision is bad decision and worse decision, but you have to understand the playing field here. And if you don't understand that and comprehend that completely before you head on out and vote or start your protest or start badmouthing the rest of the Democratic Party, well, then you're basically you're doing this to yourself, and I it's one of the problems I have is that you have to have a better message. Take a look at Republicans. Republicans do not badmouth Republicans. They might say, you know what, I'm not on board with that. But the only Republicans that badmouth Trump are the ones that are retired, that are ones that are gone, the ones that are there saying, we'll look at this policy. We'll look at Kid Rock being in charge of the Health and Human Services or something. They'll look at this like with a straight face, even though no one that's sane would ever say that's a good idea. They'll look at it like, well, we'll have a discussion about this. You have to become better unified. And that's not about stifling you.
Nope.
It's about basically realizing your best chance at getting your agenda passed is with Democratic majorities, not sitting on the outside saying they should have done everything I wish they had done. And you've got to get that under control.
And it's and some of that is from the top, but some of it's also taking personal responsibility and understanding that, wait a minute, for us to get this, we have to do these things here, and however one is to define that. And yes, okay, guys who are listening, Matt and I have taken a few minutes to self-evaluate, to talk about the things that we know we as a party have been not so good at. We recognize that. It's not that our policies and our goals are not good. They are superb. But sometimes the way in which Democrats the firing squad or however that phrase goes, we have to stop doing that. If there's a thing that we have to stop doing, it's not changing our policies or reaching black men differently or reaching the rural voters different. It's none of that. It's we have to stop cutting our own wrist. If we start there, start there with, look, yeah, do you see how many times this sort of self-firing has gotten us into trouble? Okay, so let's stop doing that right now. No more of that. Let's stop. And then from there. And I was going to say you're exactly on point, and you're exactly right. And if you're upset, if you're listening to me right now and you're saying, "Who is this punk?" I'm first of all on board with you. Second of all, the reality is we have to learn our lessons the hard way. And if we don't stifle this stuff before the next election, well, guess what? We're going to lose and lose worse. If you are more upset about Joe Biden giving Hunter a pardon today than you are about the insane lineup of cartoon villains that Trump is putting in charge of every major department because he needs, A, stoolies that are going to do exactly what he says to do, and also fall guys for when the inevitable bad thing that can happen, they can point at RFK Jr. or, Dr. Oz and say, hey, we didn't do that. That was them. If you can't see what they're setting up right now and you're more upset about Joe Biden than you are that, I can't help you. Your outrage meter and filters are broken, and you're just perpetually terrified of facing the reality. You got to be focused and realize what's happened has happened. This is going to hurt all of us. And a lot of groups, especially far more than it's going to hurt me. I mean, it's just we have to be prepared and understand that if you're not unified, well, this is what happens when you're not unified. I've been begging for people to stop doing this, Matt, because listen, I don't. It's not about the whataboutism so much. It's more about, hey, wait a minute, press pause and let's look at this. It's not the what about. I hate when people position it. Well, the what about. I get why people want to try that, but with someone like me, it's like, no. Hold on a second. What Matt just said is spot on as well, and that is if you're more upset about President Biden pardoning his son because he had a change of heart, change of view, whatever way you want to position that, you're more upset about that. And I could give a darn about what all the different media outlets all over the world are saying. The same media outlets, Matt McNeil, are the same media outlets that didn't disclose readily, repeatedly, that Trump lied about COVID on tape to Bob Woodward. And the list just goes on and on. He pardoned guys that caused harm to the country. And the list goes on and on. Be more upset and do something about the fact that this dude is a 34-time convicted felon. We know the laundry list. He stole federal documents. Be more upset about he's a failed businessman. And did you do the work to go out and change the mind of somebody in your family or someone in your cohort about all the crap that he's done? Or did you just lay down and go, well, but the Democrats didn't they didn't make sure that prescription drugs were perfectly paid for years ago? You know what I'm saying, man? I'm like, come on, y'all. So I don't blame just the leaders. I blame the voters who are on our side that have sat back and said, yeah, but I just wish that he could have got the price of gas down $1 a little bit sooner because I would have been able to fill up my 25-gallon car without it being so difficult. I mean, it's like, come on, y'all. Where in the hell is personal responsibility in the process of pushing back real time? I had a conversation with a friend this weekend where I said, listen, you can be upset as you want to right now and need a political hug all you want to, but did you do the work in the last couple of years that when somebody spoke some garbage about President Biden and Vice President Harris and the administration, did you counter that with that's a lie or here are the facts or and use whataboutism to say, yeah, but do you remember what Donald Trump did on this day or at this time on this issue, et cetera, et cetera. If you didn't do that readily with family, friends, and loved ones, you failed more so than the Democratic Party did.
Yeah, if you are out there, if you've just been shot by Donald Trump and you're bleeding out and you're more upset about the victim not saying please to 911 than you are at the guy that just shot you, then I cannot help you because your perspective is blown out of proportion. And as you just said, Richard, and you're spot on once again, eggs, Matt. Eggs. Yes, eggs were pricey, but it wasn't inflation. It was record profits for the egg companies because those two things cannot exist together. You can't have inflation and record corporate profits. Nope. Those two things are incompatible. So when you're sitting and complaining about the eggs, you should be angry at the egg producers, not Joe Biden, because that wasn't inflation. That was good, plain old-fashioned 1980s greed, and it is still out there. And until we defeat that, we are not going to be able to really get past this stuff. But, hey, I guess so. Eggs. Who doesn't love an omelet?
Hey, you know what? Well, I had a guy call in the show before. This was back in probably March of this year, and he was going on about, Richard, I went to buy some cereal, man, it was $8 a box, and and I said, okay, listen, I get that. Well, then go get a different cereal brand. Remember that, Devin? Yeah. Just listen, man. Shop for something a little bit less expensive. This isn't the first time things have been priced high. I mean, and he was a troll. He was a troll to some extent. He was a dude that wanted to come in and just, rail on about. He called me a Biden shill and all this other kind of garbage. And I'm like, listen, the question, Matt, and you probably been asked this question, is, the 4-year question. They always ask, is your life better than it was 4 years ago? Hell, it was better than it was 2 years ago, a year ago, 3 years ago. Yeah. Because we keep progressing. It's about to get worse as it relates to what you and I are starting to talk about these appointments or suggestions to the cabinet. It's about to get worse. And I wonder how many people are going to be honest with themselves if the question's asked, not in 4 years or 2 years or 3 years, but in 6 doggone months. How's your life now? How's your family? Yeah. How those of you who said, yeah, they're gonna deport the bad people in my community. No, they might deport your behind too. And the list goes on and on and on. Oh no, I don't think that an abortion is a bad thing, but I'm going to vote against it because I don't want it coming into my house. Okay, well, watch out when your daughter goes off to college and some knucklehead decides to unfortunately assault her, and now she's pregnant and can't do a doggone thing about it. I mean, I'm not being nasty or mean. I'm just saying folks did not wake up to what is about to really happen. And 75 million of them, Matt, they made the decision, Matt McNeil, that I don't want to vote for this brown-skinned woman who has been elected to three branches of government. I would rather go with this guy over here who's proven to me, if I paid attention or I'm honest with myself, that he can't run a damn thing. But I'm going to vote for that because I don't like women and I don't like folks with brown skin. That's what literally happened.
Well, first of all, I want to just go back. $8 box of cereal? What kind of imported German gravel and twigs are you eating in the morning, dude? That's on you. That's more of a lifestyle thing. You need to see a doctor. That being said, I'm far more bothered by the 120 million people that did not vote, registered voter, people that could have voted in this country that did not vote because apparently there was something on TikTok or a video game or just a book they had to read that was less important. You said it. In 6 months, this is not going to be the glory days of when Trump left office, when we had refrigerator cars at morgues because so many people were dying of COVID that you seem to forget about. This is going to be instantaneous. One of the things I keep telling people is if you have a roof you want to get done, if you have like a driveway you want to get worked on or anything like that, I would be calling and trying to get that scheduled and getting a specific price point now. Because when those tariffs kick in, when he basically rounds up the undocumented workers who are the people that do that work in this country, that is immediately going to be far more expensive when he takes office, and it's going to be a lot longer before you can get it done. And that's not even talking about the ag sector, which is the dirty little secret of Republicans. As all these people out in rural America like to talk about, we are against undocumented workers. The real dirty secret is they're so dependent on undocumented workers to pick their crops and run their processing facilities that they basically don't want to. They don't want those people gone. They just want those other people gone. This is going to hurt everyone. And as you just said, Richard, in 6 months, this is going to be a nightmare.
Yep. And that's why, circling back to where Matt and I kind of started on unity, is so important. And that is why we have to make absolutely certain we all do, if we are truly committed to this being as less painful as possible and an opportunity to move forward and change things in the midterms on a national level, is to get involved right now with local elections, local events, local organizations, arms linked, like crossing the bridge in Selma, and make sure that we don't get splintered off. Because
exactly.
If we don't do that, I'm telling you, America, if we do not do that, then the pain is only going to get worse. We have to stay together. We cannot allow these little, penny ante things to get us distracted. We have to be willing to lean in, I think, Matt, every single day and call out the craziness and the bad behavior real time. So I'm hoping that folks are going to be plugged into that. And I'm hoping that Matt McNeil says, Richard, I want to come back and we can chop it up again in the near future, because I love your show. I love the work that you're doing. And I'm so glad that we're able to chat this morning, man. It's been great. What are your final words this Monday morning?
Well, first of all, the privilege is all mine, and thank you, Chicago. I love being on the air down there, and this is an absolute privilege to be on your show. So thank you very much. Anytime you want me back, I am more than happy to make the time for you, my friend.
All right, my man. Listen, Matt, have a great day and a great week, and we'll do this again sooner than later, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, man. Have a great day. Devin, let's go to a quick break. 773-763 9278. When we come back, I'm going to grab your calls. I appreciate you guys holding. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. 773-763-9278. It was great having Matt McNeil with us in that brief bit. And he's Matt, like myself, we understand what we have to do as a community of progressives, but we also recognize that we can't be. I love his analogy of we can't be punching our own players. That makes no sense whatsoever. Let's go to Big Art real quickly. Hey, Big Art, welcome to Choose Views. Good morning.
Good morning to you, and happy post-Thanksgiving.
You got it.
Boy, Matt really stole a lot of my thunder. He was very eloquent in all the things that I wanted to touch on. Pretty much, that guy that called you right before the 7:00 break, he qualified what he was saying, his displeasure of the pardon, by saying that he'd been in the fight for the last 30, 40 years and all this and that. One thing we got to stop doing, progressives, is allowing the Republicans whose mantle is cruelty and unkindness toward their fellow Americans. We got to stop letting what they think and say affect us so much. The hell with what they think and say. They've been proven to be a bunch of hypocrites and liars and deceivers. And they have the media, the mainstream media behind them doing this. What I want to see is, and I'm going to be a little facetious here, I want to see a big expose by the media with this question. Does D2 Jr. need an intervention? Seriously. Have you heard that I would call I can't even call him a young man because he's about 40, right?
Yeah.
Well, have you heard the shrill in his voice when he's ranting and going on?
What's crazy about this is we're going to get upset about President Biden pardoning his son after realizing that he changed his mind. Whatever people say, he lied. Whatever. one son versus the other. So we have another son who clearly, to your point, there may be a need to do an intervention, but nobody in the mainstream media is really talking about that. So
no, they're not going to. But they'll talk about all the fentanyl crossing the border and all the drugs and the big bus that we had just recently. You see all that cocaine goes in the back of that truck. And that's just a drop in a bucket. It looks good for the police doing that. I'm glad they caught it. It's just a drop in the bucket. But the main problem is, why do we have all these drugs coming to the country? Yeah. It's because we have a drug problem in this country where so many people are doing it. And what's the majority of the? I mean, sometimes I just get on my tablet and I look at what's the U.S. population? What are the percentages of Caucasian people, Black people, Native Americans, et cetera, et cetera? And it's be like an overwhelming population in this country still is white. It's Caucasian, and who's doing all these drugs? It's not poor Black people and poor brown people. We barely, we're trying to survive and have a good, decent life. They're not doing cocaine or like crazy.
You would be led. You'd be led to believe that the highest users of certain drugs are of a certain community when it's absolutely incorrect. The data doesn't back it up.
Most definitely.
The numbers don't back it up. And percentage wise, those are the people that are caught. And who the distributors are, the list goes on and on. I mean, that's a conversation for another show. But I get your point. It's a large disconnect that a lot of people just don't. One of America's biggest issues, Big Art, and you've heard me and Eric talk about this on the family meeting, is folks don't want to believe that there's monsters in the closet. And
always lying to ourselves. Always lying to ourselves.
Yeah. So, all right, man, listen, I got to bounce and grab a couple other calls.
Okay.
Thanks, Big Art. Have a great week this week.
All right.
I look forward to hearing from you again.
You too. I might call back sometime this week.
Sounds good. All right. Let's go to Victor real quickly in Oregon. Victor, good morning. Welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, Mr. Chu.
Hey.
Surf's up. Everything okay with you?
Doing great, man. Monday morning, we're back in the saddle and getting it going and loving that you guys are out there listening to our show and providing us with contributions. So I'm in a good space, man.
Great. Out here, surf's up because Republicans don't believe in global warming, and so the oceans are rising all around the world. Mm-hmm. But the reason I'm calling is that I think you should put a segment into your show called Are You Kidding? And making, that way you can compare, contrast, and dissect everything that Donald Trump does moving forward. Now, as far as Hunter Biden goes, this was a political hit job that started 8 years ago under Donald Trump when, the notorious phone call to Zelensky in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And all Donald Trump did for 4 years was try to cover up the Russia investigation and go after his political opponent. Nobody believes that everybody in the world believes that this was a political hit job against Hunter Biden from the very beginning. There's not a person that believes otherwise. All Hunter Biden did was fill out a form to purchase a gun incorrectly. Donald Trump...
And got rid of the gun, I think, within 2 weeks or whatever.
Exactly.
And didn't do anything bad with it, wrong with it. But yes, Victor, I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay. And in your Are You Kidding segment, you should compare and contrast the people that Donald Trump pardoned. There was a murderer, a Navy SEAL who killed a 12-year-old girl. There was most of the people were involved in espionage against the United States of America. And so if you compare and contrast what President Biden did with his son, then there should be no complaint and no discussion at all without comparing with Donald Trump and the people that he pardoned.
And it's not a whataboutism conversation. It is. You're right. It's a compare of the facts or the actions that took place. It's not a whataboutism.
Right. And in your Are You Kidding segment, you can go through every single one of Donald Trump's nominees for the cabinet positions and on his staff and compare them to President Biden and his choices. All of Donald Trump's choices have a history of sexual assault or corruption, and, just the most vile, unqualified people he could choose. And President Biden, on the other hand, or the Democrats, have always chosen people with experience and knowledge. And, the differences should be shocking to America, but you won't hear that on mainstream media or news.
No.
That's why we must have people like you and Stephanie and the rest of the progressive voices out there telling us the honest truth. If you're listening to Fox News, you're already too far gone anyway. And another thing, everybody in the United States and the world knows that this election was stolen. So blaming the Democrats for a stolen election is just futile. It's like pissing up a rope, so to speak.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Victor. Well, no, we're good. I think we're good there. Victor, listen, man, I'm going to try to get some other folks in because we're running tight on time, as usually happens.
Keep up the good work, Richard. Too. You and a few of your kind are the last of the freedom fighters, and we are going to need you desperately when Trump takes over the country.
I'm going to be here, Victor. I promise you that. Listen, man, have a great day today, and thanks for your call and contribution.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Let's go real quickly to Mildred. I think Mildred's up in Madison. Is that? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, you are.
What you doing up in Madison today?
Chicago. Hi. I am feeling so good yesterday. Church day, and then I come home and I hear that Biden pardoned his son, and I jump for joy. I couldn't understand why he waited so long. He knew it was a hit job against his son. And after November the 5th, November the 6th, I would have pardoned my son after Trump took over after he called himself winning the election. Because at that point, Trump had talked about going after his political enemies, and Biden was one of them. So he's been going after Biden's son for years and years. Yep. Why are people upset about Biden pardoning his son? That is absolutely crazy. It's time that craziness is over. So I am so happy that he pardoned his son, because it was not fair the way they treated an ex-drug person that, apparently he was sick and needed help. He didn't kill anybody. I said, thank God he didn't kill anybody.
Self-inflicted
he just hurt
harm.
himself.
And listen, Mildred, listen, I don't want to make any assumptions here, but those of us who are either parents or aunts and uncles, like I said, none of us are more than 3 degrees of separation from somebody in our family or network of friends and close associates that has someone that struggles with an addiction of some sort. And their behavior is going to be altered, unfortunately, because of that. Now, President Biden, yes. I could give a darn about, listen, he said what he said and promised that he's not going to, and then the game changed. The game changed, yes. and Donald Trump made it clear, and his minions were coming. I mean, Kash Patel made it clear before he was in this suggested role that he's going to come after people who don't agree with the president, now the newly elected president. President Biden did what he thought was the right thing to do because the game changed. So his statement that I won't do it changed because, as I see it, they said we're coming after you. So do what you got to do. So I don't know.
And he did.
He did.
And he did. He pardoned his son, which is the right thing to do, in my opinion. Yep. I am so happy that he did that. He stood up and fought like a man. Now, come on, Trump. He knew he was coming after him. He came after his son because of Biden.
Sure he did. And that would it would almost be irresponsible as a parent, even of a grown son, or daughter. If you know that you can protect your son or your daughter, then doggone it, you do it. And folks who got a problem with that, you need to fix your own problem. And
absolutely.
I just look at it that way. We didn't lose our stature on the world stage. If this is what caused it. This is what caused it, and all those other things.
Well, actually, Richard, it started with the American people putting that
Thank you.
in office as president.
Thank you.
People voted for that crap, and when the people voted for that crap, then things did change. we got a different worldview now.
Mm-hmm.
And Biden's worldview is, I better protect my son.
That's right.
These people is crazy. They voted for this man.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
75 million people, Mildred said, that we've lost our stature in the world. Not one man who pardoned his son. So, all right, Mildred. Listen, dear, glad you're back safely and that you had a good holiday weekend. We're going to take a quick break, but appreciate your contribution as always to the show, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, bye now. Devin, let's go to a quick break before we wrap up today. 773-763-9270. I still see your calls on hold. When we come back, we'll come right to your calls. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9270. Glad you're with us. Catch us on Facebook Live, Twitter Stream, TuneIn Radio, iHeart, and pass it on to the folks that you know that need to hear our message, our callers, and all the rest. Speaking of callers, Devin, let's go to Donna here in Chicago. Donna, good morning and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, Richard, and happy post-Thanksgiving to you and your family.
You too. Thank you so much.
You know what upsets me about Dems? Our timing and our focus is always on the wrong thing. The fact that I'm glad Biden didn't tell them that he was going to pardon his son, because had he done that, they would have found a way to block it. He did the right thing. Sure. He realized the severity, and then he made the move, which was in his power to use. Plus, the other thing is, I learned a lot about the citizens of America during COVID-19. COVID-19, the people were so bent out of shape of inconvenience, they couldn't go places without wearing a mask, and they were upset about that. If that made a lot of inconvenience in their life, they better be well prepared for what's ahead. We need to be shoring ourselves up collectively, finding ways to help each other, because we're in for 4 years of living hell. And we might not even recognize America if we survive this.
Yeah.
So instead of worrying about President Biden pardoning his own son, that's totally insignificant. That's like one grain of sand on beaches with thousands of grains of sand. That's not even going to stand out in the significance of what's ahead for us.
Donna,
we need to get our program and our priorities in order.
Donna, check this out. If I were sitting on a panel at any of the major news outlets today in the world, and this conversation were about, well, President Biden said da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then he lied and said now he's pardoning us, I would look at them and say, have you lost your damn mind? If you really seriously lost your damn mind, we have far bigger fish to fry as a country and as a world because of what 75 million Americans just did than you sitting over there whining about how President Biden has let down the country and changed the arc of our, national, light on the hill. I would just go after that person. Any person, left, right, or in the middle, that brought that garbage to the panel, I would tell them, you've lost your mind.
I'm telling you.
You really, that's...
I don't think people realize. You know what, Richard? That is, what you're saying right now, I don't even know why we're even focusing energy on that. Well, I know why, because the media...
They got to distract. They would rather talk about this than how Kash Patel... They'd rather talk about this, Donna, than how Kash Patel has said to the media, we're coming after you. They'd rather talk about that. Isn't that crazy? Flat out crazy.
They've had almost 2 years people talking about Project 2025. We've had almost 2 full years to study, analyze, talk about, prepare for. And it's like, I don't think these people, not only do they not read, they don't even listen to videos. People, I think they just were living in denial. They didn't keep it a secret from us. That's the one thing I can give to them. They told us what they were going to do, and when people tell you what they're going to do, you should believe them.
You'll try.
And I told all my family and friends, I said, look, I know you don't like reading things, but I can send you to videos. I can send you links. And I tried to prepare them, and they're still excited, celebrating. Well, our guy got in there. I said, okay. That's what you're saying now. I'm going to see if next Thanksgiving when we get together, you're talking the same way. Because obviously you don't realize what's ahead. I said, I'm glad you're having a party right now. But let's see if you celebrate next Thanksgiving. Because I guarantee you, the Republican Party that Donald Trump took over, which is now the Trump Party, they are not all the people in the Senate, the House, and the White House. The executive branch and the other two branches are all career criminals. They're all corrupt, and he's at the top. And I said, and none of these people have ever looked out for their constituents. What they're getting ready to do is steal your money and put it in their pockets. They're going to take tax break. You're not getting a tax break. You don't make enough money for it. I said, so while you're celebrating their win, is your loss, and you don't even know you lost.
That's right.
I know what's ahead. So what I suggest you do now is sit down and listen to these videos and find out what's coming. Because if you're upset about COVID-19, you're going to have a heck of a rude awakening when this stuff hits the fan. And it's coming. And you were complaining about prices during the Biden administration? Well, buckle up for what's ahead in the Trump administration.
Donna,
and with that,
you get to move to the front of the class. Thanks, Donna.
Good afternoon.
I will,
hey,
do.
Take care.
You too. All right, bye
now. Bye-bye, man.
Let's go to Nancy real quickly up in Schaumburg. Hey, Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. Just a question.
Yes.
With the new administration going in, our money in our bank accounts are backed up by the full faith of the U.S. government. Is our money safe?
Are you asking me? So you're asking me a point blank question: is our money safe? So I'm not I'm not a banker, and for the money to not be safe, the FDIC would have to be dismantled. So let's look at this from I'm going to say yes because of that, and a few other guardrails that are in place. But I also have to say yes because of this. And I know that a lot of people have been putting out there why there's so much of a drive and conversation around crypto is because they want to see the change in our financial systems and monetary systems. There's too many people that have money in financial instruments that are bank-based or cash-based. For me to think that our monetary system is going to crumble because they want to take away our banking protections. That's how I see it. And based on what I've been reading and following, that's kind of how I'm positioning myself in the wind on this one. I have to be very careful, Nancy, in how I answer that question because I have to be mindful of not giving financial advice per se in that space. So I'm following the rules that I have to follow in my other life. So, but that being said, as a human being, as a regular dude that knows that we have a Nancy up in Schaumburg asking that question, I do believe that our guardrails are going to hold in that space because we have too much money in our banks. And if that were to, I just don't see that the guardrails are going to break there. And I do see that the Senate, if the president, even though the Senate is led by Republicans, I do see that the Senate will step in that regard. I do see that probably the House will step in that regard because there's enough sensible Republicans that would then have to say, yeah, we're only 2 votes ahead of the Democrats or 3 or 4, but there'd be enough enough House members that would go, no, we can't do that. That's me. That's an individual dude looking at what I know a little bit about. But without crossing the lines and sounding like I'm giving financial advice. Does that make sense, Nancy?
It does make sense. And thank you, because I was extremely worried.
So let me tell you this, too, Nancy. This is what I want you to be able to do. I want you to be a champion of messaging like Matt and I were talking about earlier. And what I mean by that is this is that time in your life. And I don't know how old you are chronologically. It's none of my business. But this is the time.
I'm 67, and I'm proud of it.
All right. So you're 67. This is that time in your life. And I know you probably will like me, that I said it last week. I was looking forward to being able to kind of take a breather for a little bit at this point in my life chronologically, and I'm sure you probably were too. But you know what? Yeah. We gotta fight for others that we love and care about. And what that means is you now kind of have to say, you know what? If somebody comes at me with some garbage, I don't have the luxury of keeping them as a friend over caring for my children and my grandchildren or my nieces and nephews. I don't have that luxury, unfortunately, right now. This is the hand that I've been dealt. But me as Nancy and Schomburg, I've got to link up with other people who are like-minded and are willing to fight in the moment so that what, like Donna said earlier, you don't get affected more greatly than necessary by this craziness. Donna and you, Nancy, both are champions of the message. Be willing, ready, willing, and able to call people out on their BS in the moment and lock arms with somebody in your cadre to say, you know what, I'm not going to let them come at us like that. That's what I want you to do, Nancy.
Oh, that's exactly what I have been doing since the age of 6, since the civil rights movement, and I've continued on. Everybody laughed at me, but I'm strong, and I've gotten a lot of people on our side, and we're just going to continue. But I was just wondering about the banking system because I don't know. I just don't trust these people.
Well, that's not a bad way to be right now, but those are the guardrails that I think are going to hold us together during this time. So keep calling, keep reaching out. Don't go. I know you won't. I can tell why you said I'm proudly 67. I will say right on to that, Nancy, and thank you for your contribution to the show.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chu. I really appreciate you taking my call.
You're absolutely, you got it. Have a good day. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Oh, thank you. Bye now.
Bye now. That's right, Nancy. Nancy's like, I've been a badass since I was, preteen. And that's what has to happen, y'all. The badassery in us has to come out. It just does. Shake off the fear, shake off the worry, and be ready to do something, like Mrs. Obama said. Now we really have to do something. And the number one thing is connect with each other and be strong and support those who we care about and make sure that we are moving forward and protecting this process. As I say at the end of every show, guys, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.